Now I better check and make sure that this door is not too big or too small. Well, it won't be too small, but it might be too big. I better just check it out first before I start rabbiting in the edges and gluing it up. You know, I'm probably sentimental. I've had this thing back since the 60s. It was my first good tape measure. And I use it every once in a while just for old time's sake, even though I've got a better one. Okay, so here we got 8 3/8. And this is 8 1/8. So that's a 1/4 inch difference. Here we got 13 3/4 and 13 1/2. So there's a 1/4 inch difference that way. So in other words, it's just the way I wanted it. Oh, in case I forget who I am, it's even got my name on here. Gee, I wish I could turn the clock back to when I put that on there. Now I can see that I'm going to have a problem with these short pieces. And probably most of you already know what that problem is. As I'm feeding it into the router bit, it's going to catch. And it's going to turn like this. And it's going to flip out of there at about 90 miles an hour. Well, maybe not that fast, but fast enough that it'll hurt my fingers. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make a special fence here so that this thing can just ride along and it can't turn in. So I guess I got to do that first. Okay, hopefully something like this will solve the problem. I don't see why that won't work. Now if you watched a lot of my workshop videos, you'll know that I'm really big on dust collection. And that's because my workshop is in my basement, in the house, instead of in the backyard in a separate building like it should have been. I just want to do a little test piece here and make sure that the rabbit's not too deep. I think that's probably just about right. Well, I don't know if you can notice it or not, but these 3 pieces on the bottom are a little darker than the rest here. So what I want to try to do is have the 3 pieces at the top also darker, so it sort of matches. So I think I'm going to do something like that. I did make these extra pieces. Well, I think I've got these juggled around pretty good right now. And the ones on the bottom pretty well match, the ones on the top pretty well match. Sometimes you're fooled. Once the stain's on, it doesn't work out the way you think it's going to, but usually it does. So I think we're ready to route the edges, so I just have to mark these so that I'll get them back in the same place. And these are all going to be rounded over after anyway, so this pencil mark isn't going to be shown. And 12. Now, just in case I do happen to get these flipped over somehow, I want to mark the edge that I'm going to rabbet. And 12. Now, I know this has nothing to do with clocks, but we were talking about tape measures a little while ago, and I want to show you this one. It belonged to my grandfather. I can actually remember seeing him using that when I was a little kid. And I found it in a Stanley Tool catalog. The catalog is dated 1934, so that puts this thing at over 80 years old. And look, it was only 75 cents. You know, it's probably worth about $75 or more now, but it means a lot to me, and I'm not gonna sell it. Oh, and by the way, in case you're interested, I was made in Canada too. I know it looks like I'm putting a lot on here, but this end grain sort of sucks it up. And I don't want these joints to be glue starved. Now it's important that the side that the glass is going to fasten to is going to be as flat as possible right now. And the reason for that is because I'm not too worried about the top. I can always sand that flat later through the drum sander. And this string has been drawn very, very taut. Well, once again, I'm going to have to leave my project until tomorrow, and we'll see how it looks in the morning.